Happy New Year, everyone! This is Zarataro. Let me give you all a good little ham hi. 2024 has already got some amazing games coming up, but let's not forget that last year, amazing games were played as well. Even if they didn't come out last year, I know everyone has a title or two that they cherish deeply. I reached out to some creators and they were able to send me back some videos on some of their favorite games that they played last year. If any of them look good to you, feel free to go ahead and give them a shot. And also, I wanted to thank YourFavoriteSon, the creator who gave me the idea for this. So, if you haven't seen them before, they do great retrospective long-form video essays. I especially recommend their Max Payne and Legacy of Kain one. So, on that note, let's go ahead and go with the show. Happy New Year, everyone! This is Zarataro. 2023 was a year packed with amazing games, but for me, the gem that I enjoyed playing through the months was Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. The original Xenoblade Chronicles came out in Japan in 2010 and wasn't released stateside till 2012. There's an amazing story on the fan push for its localization, so look up Operation Rainfall whenever you get a chance. Xenoblade Chronicles is a sci-fi fantasy RPG where two dueling titans ends in a draw, and over the years, life springs up along their bodies. The life forms of the Bionis and the mechanical beings of the Mechanis. The story follows Shulk, who most may know from the Super Smash Bros. Series, and his sword, the Monado. The sword grants Shulk the power to fight the Mechanis and to see into the future, to try and change the terrible fate that they strive against. Xenoblade Chronicles has vast, open areas where you can explore so much of. It's got day-night cycles that affect the strength of enemies, and some of the dungeons and areas you explore just look beautiful. The story is anime as hell. Shulk and his friends travel across the Bionis, meeting other races, deal with political strife, unraveling the secrets as to the origins of the Titans' conflicts. The game is just amazing, and I can't stop just spending hours running around and fighting things and learning things and collecting things. The game is just unbelievable in its amount of breadth and content. Mwah! Chef's kiss. The game really knows how to deliver the feels. The music complements the game in every aspect. When you're watching the story unfold, when you hear the music start to amp up, you know you're going to get that payoff that just delivers time and time again. I can't say it enough, just how much fun and how invested I just get. You get so engrossed into the game that I find myself losing hours at a time playing it. It's great! Xenoblade Chronicles is a must-play for people that want to lose themselves in a world of love and fantasy. I couldn't recommend it enough. 2024, I'll be knocking out its sequels, Xenoblade 2 and 3. I can't wait to see where this franchise goes from here. I hope I've helped convince some of y'all to give this game a shot. Trust me, you're gonna love it! Just be prepared. It takes a long time to do a lot of stuff.
My favorite game I played in 2023 was Buck Up and Drive, a combination of fighting and racing game. Your objective in the game is to race other vehicles through different areas and beat them to obtain them in your character select screen.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Each vehicle is a little nod to a franchise like Initial D or even Transformers. It's super cool seeing the developer put in the work to make each car distinct and to also make some fun stages like the desert, the Arctic, and oh yeah, the fucking moon. And I'm not just being extreme, they called it the fucking moon in the game. The art direction making it cel-shaded was a fun idea. It beckons back to old cel-shaded games I loved like Ultimate Spider-Man and Jet Set Radio. Giving everything such bright, vibrant colors makes this game something I adore, and the retro feel of an arcade fighter racing game is also there with the replayability. The game's versus mechanic is super fun with the ability to make your cars drift, flip, and smash against one another. It's a different perspective on a fighting game that I think is a breath of fresh air. They even let you make your own decals for your cars in this game too, which as an artist, I personally enjoyed. Please go check this game out, and maybe even support the guy on Patreon since he's making a Buck Up and Drive 2 with even more cool mechanics like going up walls. This game is awesome. Please go check it out.
2023 had so many good video games come out. It was a great year overall. But if I had to pick like my favorite, I would have to say Hi-Fi Rush. This game came out of nowhere. It had no marketing, no trailer. They just dropped it and it was there. And everyone played it. And they loved it because it's great and it's good. It's an action game all about the music. Everything you do is to the beat of the soundtrack. It's amazing. The background, your footsteps, the combat. Oh my god, the combat's so good. In this game, you play as Chai. He's a ambitious guy who has no job or real talents of any kind, but he really wants to be a rock star. And sometimes pure determination and blind optimism is all you need. He signs up for a program to get himself cybertized, turned into a cyborg, and it doesn't go quite as planned because he gets an MP3 player jammed into his heart. That sounds like a problem, but it turns out it gives him some weird rhythm powers. Everything around him moves to the beat, and he gains the ability to fight things, which is important because the company that made him deems him a defect and kind of sort of wants him dead. But he meets a lot of people along the way to help survive and take down this evil corporation. Who doesn't love taking down evil corporations? This game has so much stuff that I love. The art style is great. It's like a cartoon that you can play. The combat is so good. Like I mentioned, everything is to the beat of the soundtrack. And like, there's moments in cutscenes where things synchronize with the beat, and it's so satisfying just to watch and hear. It's like the perfect blend of animation and soundtrack. The thing that I love the most, though, is probably this game's sense of humor. This game's actually really funny in a lot of ways. It's got some good fourth wall humor. It's got some good just like dialogue between characters, funny visual gags. Normally, I don't laugh very hard at games, but this one made me laugh quite a few times. Another thing that I can't sell enough about this game is how much there is to do. You can replay levels for all kinds of explorables and items and collectibles. It really helps that they added a patch not too long ago recently that added a whole new game mode where you can climb up a tower, gain upgrades as you go. Kind of like a roguelike, and everyone loves roguelikes. But the big selling point for this game is the combat and the music. The soundtrack alone is so good. I mean, it's better when you're playing the game and fighting a bunch of robots, but I listen to this soundtrack all the time, I'm not gonna lie. It is amazing, and maybe one of my favorites in recent memory. It really knocked it out of the park with this one. They even got official songs done by 9 Inch Nails, all kinds of bands. But if you are worried about streaming it, because, you know, copyright's an issue, they made their own completely royalty-free soundtrack that you can use for streaming or playing or whatever. And it's actually very good. I think it's even better, if I'm being honest. This game, it's one of those games that just kind of it ticks all my boxes. Everything I like in games is in this game. And it's amazing that it came out of nowhere. Again, this game had no marketing, it had no trailer, it had no anything. They just said, hey guys, here's Hi-Fi Rush, and everyone said, what is that? What is that? You just made that up. What does that name even mean? I don't know. But it's great. It's so good. If I could recommend any game that came out in 2023, it's hard because there were a lot. There are a lot of great games. But if I could pick any one, it would be Hi-Fi Rush. It is so good.
I am a fish of many tastes. I enjoy devil hunters that literally shoot other devils, either for a job to get money or get that delectable pizza. Fighting dragons with my bare hands just to only suck their souls in to get more power. 2 robots fighting each other to the death to see who is right and who is wrong in a faction-based war. And a hot lady kicking angel butt while dealing with stupid puzzles. But there is one thing I love the most. A game that I have been waiting for years to finally be released upon the world, to see everyone go into it with complete and utter chaos. An ability to seduce a squid man while you're a dragon person. Having goblins grovel at your feet while you poison their whole entire wine stock. and being best friends with the devil man. And a choice to either pick the good side and help surviving another day and fight monsters that most people fear, or become the monster in the very end. That game is Baldur's Gate 3. I have been in early access with Baldur's Gate 3 for 4 years when it was announced originally. And if you thought the bugs in early access was bad, oh boy, it was a living nightmare. And I'm so glad that in the final release, they fixed all the problems in the game, with still some goofs and gaffes on the side. But I will do my best to explain the game. You start off in an alien ship, out of an alien pod. You crawl out, go outside, and you realize, oh, I am not in some alien ship. I'm on an alien ship. In hell. While trying to figure out how the heck I get off of the ship, you encounter a new companion. She goes by Lizelle, a Gith Yankee warrior who worships and devotes her life to Vlaakith. If some of you don't know, Vlaakith is an undead lich and is a very bad person. But who cares about those flying red flags? While trying to find a way to get off the ship, you encounter another pod person. Looks like a half-elf woman who's begging her life to get out. Lizelle, as being the cool Lizelle she is, tells you she's stinky and weak. Let's leave. I, on the other hand, told her to go stuff it while I free our new companion, who goes by Shadowheart. Shadowheart is very grateful for assisting us and says, I will join you to kick these alien butt. And Lizelle, being Lizelle, says, this sucks, but okay, I guess. Y'all make it finally into the hub, fight some infernals, take control of the ship, and crash land back to Faerun. You wake up and realize the frog lady is no longer around. But on the plus side, you don't need to worry about that anymore, as you have a new little wormy friend in your head that would like to make you as its wormy friends too. Which sounds fun at first, but you realize that might not be a very good idea and would hurt. A lot. So you need to get that wormy out of your head home and let it explore the world of Faerun. Upon your journeys, you find more adventurers. You return back to Shadowheart, who tells you she is the Cleric of Shar, Lady of Lust, and Mother of Darkness, who is also a very bad person when you come to think about it. Then you meet Hot Boy Astarion, the sexy vampire that's been all over the internet, who also has a very traumatic backstory, and I will say, if I see Cazador on site, it is game. Gale of Waterdeep is the next character you meet, who you pull him out of the hole and tells you thank you very much. And then we'll proceed to ask you for all your magical weapons because, dang, they look very scrumptious. Then you return back to Lizelle, who is trapped above some tieflings and will tell you to get rid of them. Which you could just tell them to please leave, and she gets all grumpy about it, but who cares, who cares? Next is the Blade of Frontiers. Will Ravengard, who's the most sweetest being there is. He doesn't tell you, but he has super mega powers from his Dami Mami Missoura, and will ask you to assist him to go find a devil that's been causing problems and killing a lot of people, and is on fire. And last but certainly not least, Karlach. She has a heart of gold, if it wasn't replaced by an infernal engine. Thank you, Zariel. And now, because of that, Will has been hired to hunt down Karlach and take her head because she is a devil and she is heartless. But that's a decision that you will need to follow once you get yourself into Baldur's Gate 3. But let me get a little bit serious here. Baldur's Gate is the game of the year for me. It doesn't matter whoever said it, a company or some top time people. I really don't care. Baldur's Gate has been helping me out and kind of makes me go through some stuff that I connect deeply with. Astarion was one of them, going through in a situation of getting out and have to go face your conquering fears. Feeling like you've been used by someone you loved the most for Gale, and being able to find meaning and purpose for yourself into somebody else. If you haven't noticed, I romance Gale a lot. Being blinded by somebody you thought you'd devote yourself and there was other things for you laid out originally is another thing for Shadowheart. Lizelle was trust turned to betrayal, and it was pain that I couldn't bear at that point. Karlach was the same, was of betrayal and feeling like everything's gonna end. And there's Will, the hero. He kind of reminds me of me being able to go on my own path, even though I went something different and someone I cared for originally didn't see eye to eye to it. But in the end, I wouldn't change it for the world. And Baldur's Gate, in its own way, let me go through that pain and understand that it's okay. That sometimes we fall from the past, but we get ourselves back up. And I would recommend this to anybody who just are there for fun or for an experience to finally enjoy themselves and not worry about your past. Now, if you excuse me for a second, I gotta go help out this wormy to go on its own adventures and help Gale find more magical items to fill his black hole. Gods, I love him. Stay fantastic, everyone.
I'm UnchainedAwesome, and for my most influential game of 2023, it has to be Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. To most, this game is one of the buggiest, messiest releases of late 2022, but for me, it's an exciting step in the right direction. For most of my life, I can remember playing Pokemon. I have probably been playing Pokemon through most of the major milestones in my life. Due to this, it makes me really sad to think that in the past couple years, I've been thinking about going complete cold turkey on Pokemon altogether. For me, Pokemon has started to become stale. I started to watch as something I once loved is slowly and painfully warping and withering into something that I frankly hated. That's when Pokemon Scarlet came in for me. For the first time ever, it was an open-world experience in Pokemon, where your decisions sort of kinda mattered. A game where you could explore and go anywhere on the map and do anything you wanted in whichever order you wanted to, right from the start. For me, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were incredible experiences. Not only do the Pokemon themselves look the best they ever have, but exploring and playing the story have been the most fun I've ever had while playing a Pokemon game in recent years. The story is one of found family, bonding with friends and Pokemon alike, which is what Pokemon has always been to me. Pokemon for me has always been a social game. Whether it's been trading with friends, battling with each other's teams, or just simply playing together while sitting side by side. Pokemon has been about the bonds we share with our friends, both in and outside the game. I have made so many friends over the years just by purely playing Pokemon. And in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, they push the capabilities of Pokemon multiplayer. No longer are we just simply confined in our world, in our Pokemon game. Now we are able, for the first time ever, to basically play the entire single-player experience with someone alongside us. I used to play a lot of Pokemon with my friends in person, but unfortunately I'm not a kid anymore. And all of my friends have grown up with me. We have jobs, school, and other responsibilities. So we can't always have the time to just hang out and play Pokemon together. But in Scarlet and Violet, I can hop onto a Discord call and chat with my friends while we explore Paldea together, simulating what it felt like playing Pokemon together once more. In 2023, the DLCs for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet were released, and I think they were incredible additions to the base game. Barring the lack of stability updates, the DLC was a great story, and continued the theme of found family and creating bonds, as well as what would happen if those bonds get strained. The story of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is one that tells the adventure of you as the player, meeting and befriending many different people with differing interests and backgrounds, but with one shared love of Pokemon. The story, the open world, and the Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet show me that Pokemon is potentially going in the right direction, and it leaves me with a new, reignited hope for the franchise, which is why, for me, my most influential game of 2023 has to be Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. Thank you.
Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, and I've been a fan of Sonic since I was 2, and now here I am, 31 years old, and I'm still loving the Blue Blur. Which takes me to my favorite game of 2023, which actually isn't a game that's from 2023, it's actually from last year, and it's 2022's Sonic Frontiers. Sonic Frontiers is not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. It's got some wonky controls, it has some weird structure, the plot doesn't make sense all the time, but what I appreciate about Sonic Frontiers is that it's a game that really tried to do something. It took Sonic in a new direction with the open zones. It had combat now, which isn't a first for Sonic, but it was definitely an emphasis here. And it respected the lore of the Sonic franchise while trying to add to it. It had amazing vocal performances, great music, really hype supersonic battles, and it was just a game that felt like the passion behind it was so tangible. So the flaws of the game, while very real and very legitimate to complain about, don't really harm the overall product that the game is. And I've been playing it since it released in November of last year. But the reason I consider it also a 2023 game is we've been getting updates for this game fairly consistently. They were smaller updates, containing extra modes like to boss rush mode and challenges and extra Coco, the little rock creatures and everything. And those were fun and they were great. We had a birthday celebration, and every time that they added stuff, it improved the game. They added better controls, they added Sonic Spin Dash, which breaks the game in half, but you have to earn it, and it's just this great reward to move around as Sonic, which it just speaks to the game because it is so fun to just move around as Sonic. I have over 700 hours in this game, and I just love moving as Sonic in it. In September of this year, we got the Final Horizon, a story DLC about like an alternate ending where Tails, Knuckles, and Amy help Sonic in the final stretch to take down the big threat at the end. And it was such a wonderful experience, but just as flawed as the main game itself was. And I think that kind of is special because the good points really did stand out. You can play as Amy, Tails, and Knuckles for the first time in 3D, which we haven't been able to do in a mainline Sonic game since Sonic 06, which is just crazy to think about. They were really fun to play as, they all had unique abilities, and they brought like a new flavor that I think a lot of fans were wanting. And the crazy part about this update is that it was entirely free, which is just insane. And I put so many hours into this side story as well, because I just really wanted to dive into it with 100% and just enjoy it, and I did. There are a lot of problems. Knuckles' gliding is funky. The combat isn't great. Tails can't even homing attack. Tails can use his plane, the Cyclone, or the Tornado 2, and he can fly around the island with really no regard for anything. There were patches for this. Knuckles controls much better now, and the difficulty on certain areas were adjusted. And now Tails, Knuckles, and Amy are more capable in combat, but some would argue that they're a little too capable because they really destroy enemies really, really quickly now, so it's a problem in the opposite direction. So there are fixes that were put in there. There are fixes that still need to be done, but thankfully it's better than it was when it started, which is always nice to see. But they're just fun. It's fun to play as these characters and just get a taste of what might be in the future. But even in this game itself, it's just so wonderful. It's so enjoyable to play as them. And Sonic had these great challenges, which many people didn't like, but I loved them, where you would have to climb these giant towers, and they were like obstacle courses and platforming challenges that were just so much fun. For me, at least. Not everybody liked them. And then you would have to do these challenges, and while some of them were really fun challenges, some of them are infamous for how difficult they were. So it was a flawed free update, but it was really wonderful because it led to a climax that had Supersonic turning into a new form of like Supersonic 2 and taking on the end. And it was just epic. Flawed again, the boss fight was very poorly explained, but it had that sense of Sonic's wonder that we got back in games like Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Unleashed that just struck my heart. And with that exciting boss battle, with how cool they made Supersonic, it had a sweet ending that touched me to my core. And while I was streaming this on my Twitch channel, I actually cried. I was crying a lot. I surprised myself. I was so moved by this ending. And I think it's one of those things that just really illustrates how important Sonic, or any game franchise for that matter, can be to somebody. With this game, with Sonic Frontiers, it felt like it gave me a Sonic game that I could really attach myself to, and a game that I could find myself really just feeling comfortable with and proud of, and the kind of game I would like to think about in my free time, just like, oh, the lore implications of this, or the story about Tails and Knuckles or whatever. It was all great. I do think that I'm very lucky to be a Sonic fan, and Frontiers was a reminder of that, because Sonic is inspirational to the characters within Sonic's world. You know, he's always taking care of his friends and seeing the best in people, and while he's cocky at times, he's also a good man in his heart. But I think that inspiration also trickles out into the fans who play it as well, and I'm one of them, because yeah, I might be an adult, I might have a son coming on the way, I still look at Sonic and I'm like, that's an inspirational hero. And playing Sonic Frontiers, just going in there and running around. It's one of those things where whether I'm playing the story or if I'm just going through the cyberspace stages or whatever, I feel joy and I feel happy. It's funny to say, Sonic Frontiers just makes me happy. And what more can you ask from a video game?
Pikmin is one of the game series that I would call an all-time favourite, and I've been waiting 10 years for this installment. Part of me was worried to change it in ways that make it vastly different from the classic games, like what has happened in Pokemon over the last few generations. However, while some changes were made to the base game universe rules that existed since the start, none of the changes were bad. The classic Crash Landing story hook remained, with a larger focus on an actual story, and its characters building on what Pikmin 3 is hard to do. And it helped make progression and unlocks feel more natural. The main game rule differences are in Pikmin management and acquisition. 4 added some extra restrictions and some interesting new concepts, such as an initially low max squad size, maximum 3 different types out at once, gaining Pikmin of types you didn't have an onion for while in caves, night missions with a different playstyle, and a special Pikmin type used at night and in caves, all of which helped the exploration progression feel smoother and kept the formula fresh. The game also swaps back to the fan favourite caves from Pikmin 2, although with some differences. In 2, the game caves usually ended with a big boss, and while some caves do end in a boss in Pikmin 4, the vast majority of caves do not. Bosses that do exist are mostly returning fan favourites like the Emperor and Empress Bullblaxes, the Man at Legs, and the Water Wraith. The other new bosses that do exist are fun, the Groovy Longlegs being the most memorable. The Pikmin 2 caves also used to end with an equipment upgrade, but that was largely due to the caves being a lot longer and more excursion-like, thus acting like a reward at the end. The caves in 4 are a lot shorter on average, but more plentiful, and abilities and equipment are handled by a totally different system in this game. Some caves aren't even caves, and are either time trials or battle stages dedicated to the buzzword of the game, Dandori, which essentially means the art of efficient management and prioritization. To aid in your Dandori, ability upgrades and special upgrades are available. Many are old abilities that have existed since Pikmin 2, or returning abilities that were not present in Pikmin 3. And while there are some nice new quality of life micromanagement tools, many pieces of gear are merely renamed classics with multi-tier improvements, or things that were considered basics in previous games. Then there's the game's mascot, Ochi, your second captain/Pikmin hybrid. You can control him like a captain, issue orders to Pikmin with him, but he can also act like a Pikmin to fight enemies or to contribute carry strength equivalent to anywhere up to 100 Pikmin on his own. I say up to, as while he gains base abilities automatically as they're earned, you can also train these abilities over the course of the game to improve him to almost broken levels. He's only almost broken, as there are some mechanics to limit where he can go, as well as you losing access to the others while Ochi is busy. This does remove one of the mechanics that the 3 introduced, where you throw other captains to inaccessible areas, which, while nice in that game, did feel a tad unrealistic. One interesting change is the addition of raw material, which are little gem-looking things that replace the stacks of building materials that 3 introduced, and you do also get these by knocking down walls or defeating enemies. The key difference is that Pikmin always take it to the ship, rather than using it as is. And when building, Pikmin withdraw it from the ship in a clay-like form to build things like bridges, ramps, and other structures. But the other reason the ship stores it is that it's also the game's currency. It's used by the scientists to create new gear, and the currency-like nature is also shown more when it's rewarded from little mini-quests that are given you by the castaways. Speaking of the castaways, these are the story hook that you'll be rescuing a lot of them. Most of them serve no purpose other than to give you pup drive to train Ochi, but some unlock features in camp, and some progress the story, such as when you rescue the crew's doctor. The doctor unlocks Pikmin's biggest departure from the norm: night missions. It's a shorter tower defense style mission where you'll be defending some structures known as luminols in order to gain glow sap, so you can cure the castaways that have been converted into the Pikmin life leaflings that only munter about Dandori. On these missions, you're only able to use glow Pikmin, which are spawned from the luminols. Glow Pikmin are also this game's answer to the bulb men from Pikmin 2. in that they are immune to all hazards and can be thrown into candy pop floods. They can be summoned in caves but can't be taken to the surface afterwards. Lastly, I've got to mention about the new and returning Pikmin types. The Ice Pikmin in this game's overpowered type, bringing back the ability to shatter enemies like the Ultra Bitter Spray in 2, but also allowing you to freeze water to cross it, unlocking areas you'd not be able to reach even with a full squad of blue Pikmin. And finally, this game introduces something that fans have been asking for: white and purple onions. Propagating these types was not fun in Pikmin 2, and while the missions to unlock those onions are not easy, they're a very nice addition to the game. All these together merge into a nicely interwoven mesh of comfy, recognisable Pikmin gameplay, quality of life improvements, new fresh features, and a much more expansive world that I'm going to be learning over my many replays to keep beating my 100% time of around 40 hours. Just like I've done for the previous 3 games.
Oh, hi again everyone. I am Inabien Velvetil, and Zarataro has asked me to say something about my favorite game that I played in 2023. Well, after a lot of thinking about it, I have to say it had been Disgaea 7. The Disgaea series as a whole is one of my favorite game series. It started back on the PlayStation 2 with Disgaea 1 and has had since then 8 mainline entries with a few spin-off titles and some other games that are set in the same multiverse that aren't directly related but generally have some crossovers with the Disgaea series. Yes, I said Disgaea 7 is the 8th entry because Disgaea 1 had a direct sequel that was not Disgaea 2, and yeah, you know how it goes with games. Final Fantasy has a hand of it, and Disgaea decided to do their own thing with it as well. So, but anyways, the reason why Disgaea 7 was so really important for me this year was that Disgaea 6 was a bit of a letdown at the time. It was the first game where they went from the almost trademark 2D sprite-based characters over to a 3D chibi style, and it's where they moved over the art style or the character style. They kind of let down a lot of other things, hyper-inflating numbers, cutting out a lot of traditional characters and classes and moves, and it was a bit of a train wreck in my opinion. It was a bit of a letdown, probably my least favorite in the series, despite having a decent story and decent characters in it. It's just overall the mechanics of it was kind of bad, and I was kind of like, once they announced Disgaea 7, I was really hoping it would be going back to form, and they did, and surprisingly it was really good. Is it my favorite one? Hard to say. Disgaea 4 and Disgaea 5 are really hard to top, so, but it's up there. And a lot of things are really fun about it. For those that don't know, Disgaea is a series that is set in mostly in Netherworlds, where you kind of follow the demon protagonist in their struggles with whatever is going on at the moment. And quite often it's mostly that you see the human side of demons and all that. It's really interesting, and I would really advise you to start playing it. And if you do, start with number 1. It is a bit dated at this point with missing some quality of life features, but the story is really good, the characters are amazing of it, and yeah. But it's a SRPG series that started back on the PlayStation 2 all that long ago, and it has had generally 2 entries per console life cycle, pretty much. So that's always a real neat thing in my opinion. It's really focused on the humor, the storytelling, and the character growth within the story itself, and the ridiculous numbers that you can bring your characters to. Generally speaking, the max level of most of the games is like 9,900, which must seem like a lot, but it's mostly done in the post game. Most of the main game of the series of the games is pretty much you get to the final boss and you're around maybe a level 100 if you didn't power level. But The post game of the game is where it really starts, where you start leveling up your characters, and then once you reach 9,999, you come to the conclusion that the strongest enemies in the game are still one-shotting you because the stats are just as high, and that's where some of the more advanced game mechanics come in, like reincarnation, where you reset your character back to level 1, but they keep most of the stuff they have gotten in the previous level up cycle, and you can really build them up. You generally start on your first time you hit that max level, you are somewhere with stats in the 10,000s, and quite often the max stats are somewhere around 100 million or something. And the thing is, it might sound like a lot, but overall speaking, the grinding in the games is generally can be really optimized. A lot of stuff in there is just put in to make as much out of a single battle that you can do, and it is actually possible to get a character from level 1 to 9,999 in a single battle. So in that regard, the grinding isn't the hard part. The optimizing is where the real game starts. And I've been enjoying them for a long time, and I hope everyone is willing to give them a try at some point, because the story, the characters, the gameplay, I really like it, and I really hope that more people start enjoying it. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful 2024. And I want to thank Zarataro for having me on this, and everyone, game on.
Cryostasis, an old forgotten horror game. What is there to say about this hidden gem? No, actually, what is there to say about this game? Well, I suppose a good place to start is to say that it's an old FPS set on a haunted Cold Warrior nuclear icebreaker up in the Arctic Circle. You play as a Soviet meteorologist who is due to be picked up by this ship, but found it wrecked and full of frozen zombies of the former crew. Your goal is to figure out why your ride out of the Arctic is in this state, and what happened to cause this, and if you can use any of the supernatural shenanigans going on inside to fix this mess. Along the way, you experience ghostly flashbacks, find the entries from the captain's log, and experts from an oddly allegorical folktale, all of which detail how the crew and senior command lost faith in the captain after the ship first got stuck on thick ice, and then attempted a mutiny which only made things worse. Oh, and later you fight God? Maybe? Aside from being a strange story, the game's also currently impossible to buy, since the devs went under and distribution rights got screwy. At the end of the day, it was easier to pull the game from digital storefronts than to figure out the rights or find a buyer for the license. Now you either have to pirate it or find an old CD-ROM. Overall, the game explains little, even less of that makes sense. No fans exist to have spent any time to analyze or form theories around the game, and it controls worse than the cow you possess for a short time. But despite that, it leaves a hell of an impression, and overall pretty fun game for an early 2000s horror shooter. Oh yeah, you possess a cow for part of the game. Actually, you possess a lot of things over the course of Cryostasis. The main mechanic of the game, called the Mental Echo, is your ability to reach out to a corpse and relive their last moments to try and change their fate. Could be anything from helping a crewman escape rising water, jumping into a diving suit to repair a hull breach successfully, or stranger things like saving a trophy polar bear's life from hunters to move its stuffed and mounted body away from a ladder, or that side of beef you find blocking a freezer door that you saved from a slaughterhouse back when it was a cow. The only hard and fast rule the Mental Echo has is that your subject has to be dead. Beyond that, if it was alive, you can certainly try to save it. But aside from the Mental Echo mechanic, the game plays pretty much like your average shooter. Except the guns the game gives you are slow, long, unwieldy bolt-action semi-automatic rifles, a flare gun that's too powerful to waste on the common ice monsters that you fight, a jury-rigged water pump hooked up to a boiler, and an SMG that only fires in unwieldy bursts. Granted, these are the same weapons that the enemies have, but the entire game I would have given anything for a smaller, more agile handgun or a shotgun to use in the ship's small, tight, cramped decks. Honestly, if you're not being shot at, then the handful of melee weapons you get are much more useful. Unlike most horror game protagonists, this one has no problem with improvising weapons. Your first 2 melee weapons you get are a lock and chain that you rip off of a rotting door and wrap around your fist like a knuckle duster. Then later, you'll rip a loose steam valve off of a pipe and use it as a bludgeon. That's pretty much your arsenal for the first chapter or so of the game. Your melee power will peak shortly before you get your first gun when you find the fire axe. Well, find's a strong word. It just appears in your hands after a mental echo ends with an axe-wielding ice zombie attacking the character that you're possessing. That sort of occurrence is quite common though. Exiting a mental echo sometimes will move or change your position in response to how the crew member's survival changed the ship. In this case, you went from being attacked by an axe-wielding zombie while stuck inside a bulky pressure suit to holding the axe across from the same suit, now hacked open. In other cases, the result of saving a crew member has less horrifying of an implication on the sanity of your character, such as a burned out room being now cleaned and undamaged with the door forward unblocked when you help a technician avoid death while fixing the fire suppression system. But sometimes the ship will push sudden visions and time shifts onto you. Walking through a hallway might start in a ruined prison, only for your vision to gray out as the ghosts of crewmen taking a post-accident roll call appear. If the ship is feeling really mean, which it usually is, when you return to the wrecked present, there will be a zombie in front of your face. Much of the story is presented by these ghostly visions, usually of the captain or senior officers dealing with the wreck themselves, or logbook entries, meaning that you never actually speak to another sane human your entire time aboard the icebreaker. After a while, you get somewhat used to time and place being extremely fluid concepts prone to changing as you walk through a single room, but rapidly being pushed through time while walking through a room always is a little disconcerting, as you never really know when it's going to happen or what will be waiting for you when you get back to the present. Cryostasis is a mind screw from start to finish, and sometimes the ship feels more like it's some sort of eldritch entity in its own right than just being the game's setting. I have my theories, but there's no answers for most of them. It's the type of game that I'd imagine if it was more popular it would have had plenty of theory videos and fan explanations for what happens in the game. Maybe even a sequel or the devs answering some of the questions directly. But because it got pulled from sale, none of this ever got the chance to happen. And honestly, the fact that it never got any of that is what really makes it stick in my mind. It reminds me of gaming before you could find all the information and analysis you wanted on the internet. The only thing you had to go with was your personal reading of everything that happened in the game and whatever arguments you got into it with your friends. It's nice to have a game that poses a lot of questions and requires analysis like Cryostasis does, but without the entire ecosystem of explanation and lore videos that you'd normally expect nowadays. If you want to sate your curiosity for this game, then you just have to do it yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Sooge, and I'm a Marshmallow Vtuber, and 2023 had a ton of great games that came out. One of the games I'm going to be talking about that came out last year is one of my favorites. It's called Party Animals. Party Animals is a multiplayer brawler reminiscent of Game Beasts that came out a few years ago. Another one of my personal favorite games on Steam. Party Animals is a multiplayer brawler, but instead of little rubber boys like you have in Gang Beasts, you actually dress up as little cute animals. One of the best parts about this game is being able to unlock and collect new outfits for your little animal characters, which you can also unlock. You unlock a lot of these through in-game challenges and also through in-game currency that you get through leveling up the free battle pass. But outfits aside, let's talk about the true chaotic mess that is this game. Just an absolute delight. If you love the pure chaotic energy that came with playing with Gang Beasts with friends, you are going to get that and more in Party Animals. One of the coolest things that Party Animals does that you don't see in Gang Beasts is in Gang Beasts, you would, when you perished or died, you didn't really do anything other than spectate. But in Party Animals, you're able to throw objects like bombs and banana peels and fish or tokens depending on the level. It is an absolute chaotic thrill ride. That's one of the best parts of this game, I think. It feels so good to get revenge on someone who knocks you out and come back in the afterlife and knock them out with a fish out of nowhere. This game also has a ton of maps that you can choose from. However, you might not see many because a lot of people like to play 3 or 4 of the same maps. It also has a lot of game modes. A lot of team-focused game modes, a lot of solo-focused game modes. It has a lot to offer. Another great thing about it is being able to just queue up and make a private lobby for your friends just to have pure, absolute chaos. Not to mention, it's a great game for, like, if you're a content creator and you want to have something special to play with your community. Party Animals is a great place to do that. So I would love to see everyone give Party Animals a shot. It's a great game. I think you'll all enjoy it. I've enjoyed it. My friends enjoy it. It's just such a good time. And I hope you enjoy it in 2024.
Hey everyone, it's me, Ravennya. 2023, in my humble opinion, was one of the best years for gaming. However, one of the games that I found myself coming back to in 2023 was actually released 5 years prior in 2018. Marvel's Spider-Man. Ba-ba-da-da! It is truly a one-of-a-kind game. With its Arkham-style gameplay, it gave me exactly what I wanted from a superhero game. Zipping and swinging through the vast space of New York City. You play as Peter Parker. Duh. Solving the mystery of the demons, as they run rampant through the city after the capture of Wilson Fisk. Non-spoilers in the first 5 minutes. It is not all just swinging around though. There are so many mechanics you have to incorporate, like stealth, hand-to-hand combat, puzzles, tests of speed, dodging, and you can literally throw cars at people. If you were in the need of a break though, from all of the action, you can play one of the many side missions. Or you can just swing around and take pictures of famous landmarks for EXP. And you level up. With over 40 hours of main story gameplay, and even more in DLC, this game can keep your attention for hours. And you can keep coming back and 100% it for even more time. To top it all off, it is accompanied by one of the best game soundtracks that I have ever heard. The main theme in the menu literally gives me chills. It's so good. This year, in 2024, I'll be playing the other games in the series, Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2, and I cannot wait to see what else the series has to offer, and I hope you can't wait either. Thank you so much, everyone. Ravennya out!